I know for a fact that a female nurse would make me feel more comfortable, would put me in a safer situation, but also that identity means everything and biology means nothing. So how do I know who's female, who's male? How do I even rectify this in my brain? And I ended up just like mentally freezing and going, okay, something's wrong.
Welcome to the Michele Tafoya podcast.
So Kiyah Willis is an interesting, fascinating young woman. She is 24 years old, and she is evolving from what she called a woke, non-binary person to an anti-woke, anti-non-binary person. Let me read you one bit from a piece of writing she did. Quote, "Infinity groups at school separated by race to discuss oppression introduced me to the privilege-oppressed hierarchy, or what could be called the whose feelings matter more hierarchy. I learned that white people were more privileged than non-white people, and so on." That's what she began to learn in high school in Texas. Then she went to MIT, and the story gets fascinating from there. Kiyah Willis joins us next. Economists are warning that massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA and 401k accounts as the stock market braces for impact. With inflation on the rise, yes, it's still on the rise, and global uncertainty looming, it's clear why central banks and savvy Americans are turning to gold. In times like this, Proverbs 21:20 reminds us to preserve what we've built. Right now, that wisdom points us toward gold. If you haven't had your eye on gold, time to make it a priority. I urge you to call my friends at Priority Gold to find out how they can help you diversify your savings with physical gold and silver. Call 1-800-405-GOLD or visit prioritygold.com/golden for a free gold info guide. Plus, see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is still golden. Call 1-800-405-GOLD to speak with a gold specialist or visit prioritygold.com/golden to learn more. That's 1-800-405-GOLD. Kiyah, welcome. It's great to meet you. I've been following you on X and watching your YouTube channel, and I find you to be a really rational human being, and I wish we had more of you these days. Let me start with this. On your Twitter page, your X page, it says ex-woke leftist. When did you discover you were a woke leftist before you became an ex-woke leftist?
Yeah, I really was introduced to wokeness and leftist ideology probably when I was in high school. So about 10 years ago was when I first was introduced to it through DEI departments at the school that I was going to.
At your high school?
Yes, at my high school.
What were those DEI departments? How did they position themselves? What were they telling you their goals, their aims were?
Yeah, they pretty much said that their goal was to make the school a more welcoming place, to help people who were, I guess, different, or people who came from, I guess, what they would call like minority backgrounds or oppressed groups, to feel more comfortable in a place where, the school that I went to was majority white, Christian, conservative. And so they wanted to make people who they saw as being like a minority just feel more comfortable. That was what they said. But in reality, if anyone's familiar with these DEI programs, what they do is they separate people based on race, religion, gender, and then you don't feel more included or, more a part of the community. You feel more isolated because now you're being singled out for these characteristics that are not important and probably should be seen as not important if that was actually their goal.
This was in Texas, correct?
This was in Texas, yes.
Yeah, I want to make sure people know this wasn't California or Massachusetts or Minnesota. This was Texas. And so that is a tad surprising, but the DEI philosophy is pretty much the same wherever you go. How did you sense the separateness? You talked about, instead of sort of unifying everyone, they sliced and diced and grouped people. Did you feel you were put into a group?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was put into the Black slash African American affinity group. That was the group that I was kind of assigned to. And so I don't remember if it was every few weeks or once a month, I would be separated into this group and I would have to talk about all of my experiences all the oppression that I was facing as a Black person. And it definitely, the environment and the vibe of the group was just to talk about pretty much how terrible all of the other races were and how much they were causing problems in our lives. So that definitely made me feel this otherness of, all the people around me who don't share my skin color are out to get me, or they are causing these problems. And that was what you were supposed to feel coming out of these groups, was that everybody else was kind of your enemy.
How did you feel prior to that? Being a Black girl at a mostly white conservative Christian high school before this affinity group, had you felt ostracized or oppressed?
No, not at all. I did grow up in a family that had a little bit of that mindset of, you're Black, you're different, people are never going to accept you. But I had friends that weren't Black, and my peers were very nice to me. So it wasn't something that I had really internalized until until I started doing the affinity groups, when it was like, oh, this isn't just my parents saying this, these are also my teachers, and who are professionals and who are supposed to be telling me what's true in the world. So that must mean that this is actually true and not just something my parents made up.
That sentence, these teachers who are supposed to be telling me what's true in the world, it just goes to show how influential teachers can be, and clearly were in your life. And so once you adopted this more woke mentality, what kind of changes did you notice in your mindset, in the way you approach the world, whatever you think?
I think probably the biggest word, or best word I could use to describe it would be paranoid. I just, every conversation I had with someone, I was hypersensitive to trying to read into, are they trying to oppress me? Are they committing a microaggression, which is, accidentally saying something that is oppressive? And it was really hard for me to keep up those relationships that I had with people who weren't Black, because I was, I did have in the back of my mind that, oh, maybe they are actually trying to hurt me, or they don't see me as, as good as them, or something like that. And so it did become very hard to keep up relationships. And my mindset just kept getting worse and worse. I felt more isolated as well, because again, those relationships just weren't feeling as connected. So it was, not a good place to be.
Ah, um, you went off to MIT. You're obviously a very bright young person, and I will also say you classify yourself on your X profile as X non-binary. So there became a point where you decided you were non-binary. When did that happen?
Yeah, that happened when I was in college at MIT. I kind of, along with the DEI for race issues, MIT has a very strong DEI program for kind of gender and sexuality stuff. And so I was introduced to the idea of non binary, or maybe I had heard the term before, but I really was introduced to the concept when I was in school. And that was where I had a lot of professors saying this thing is real. The administration saying, if you don't believe non-binary, if you believe non-binary isn't real, then you're oppressing people. And then along with that, a lot of peers telling me, you fit into this category because you're not super feminine, and there are certain traits that you have, that make us think that you're non-binary. And so I took the label onto myself, even though honestly I didn't fully have a grasp on what it meant. It was kind of just everybody else around me is saying that this is what I am, and so that probably means that's what I am.
Man, as you talk about this, Kiyah, I feel like the amount of pressure to walk around and make sure that you know how you're self-identifying. Oh, if you don't think non-binary is real, you are oppressing people. And by the way, if you are non-binary, you're probably oppressed in some way. I mean, keeping it all straight sounds exhausting to me. What was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I think, just going even more down the rabbit hole of how I was feeling before, just extremely paranoid. I was so afraid of accidentally misgendering people, accidentally saying the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person. My relationships were even more rocky because if I did accidentally say something that was wrong, people would get very, very offended and they wouldn't want to talk to me anymore because they would believe that I was a bigot. And so in this environment, it was just really difficult to just really to be friends with most of the people there because I had to feel like everything that I said had to go through this filter, and sometimes I didn't even know what the rules were of what I was supposed to say.
It sounds exhausting. In your YouTube video, which was then later turned into an essay, which people can read on Substack at Free Black Thought on Substack, which is very good. You talk about even sometimes reporting people to the DEI department. What's an example of one of those moments?
Yes. So one example, and this was, I guess, more related to race. I was working with a student group it was a theater related student group, and they were doing casting for a show. And I got upset because I felt like they were casting the wrong race in the wrong role because I said that they were, oppressing people by not casting. I think it was a Hispanic woman in a role that I thought should have gone to a Hispanic woman. And instead of having like a conversation about what I thought, and also the fact that there weren't many Hispanic women that even auditioned for this show, I went to the DEI department and reported them for racism against Hispanic people. And it launched an investigation into the student group for racism. That was probably the biggest report that I did because it did end up, I think the student group ended up having to change their policies around casting because they were afraid that they would get shut down for it. But yeah, it was just being very like hypersensitive to stuff that was very silly like that.
I wonder, as I'm listening to you tell this story, how you look back on that incident now and see it through a different lens if you do.
Yeah, I definitely look back and I cringe at myself because I was really like a menace back then. I think, trying really hard to police other people because I was afraid of being policed so hard myself. And so I felt like if I could become a great ally and if I could do what was expected of me and turn over people or get mad at people for doing really silly things, then maybe there would be less pressure on me to conform to it, or people would be less mad at me. And that wasn't the case. There was still an equal amount of pressure. I still had people who would get mad at me for stuff, but I didn't know really what to do to kind of stay in that circle and to still like have those friends. And I mean, the honest truth is that I shouldn't have had those friends to start with. They weren't good for me. But at the time, that was my biggest concern, was how do I stop myself from losing friends, from being seen as potentially a bigot or not as good of an ally as I should have been.
At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred, and that is free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every other freedom that we cherish. But in today's digital age, discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives. And that leaves a lot of you feeling voiceless in conversations crucial to our financial independence and security. This is where wealth protection research steps in, armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. They are defenders of free speech, committed to giving a voice to the silenced. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report. This free report highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't touch, and listeners like you can get it completely free by texting the word ideas to 76626, and that's ideas plural. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act right now. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 Election Protection Report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment does not think you can handle, and to take control of our financial destinies. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy now. So, Kiyah, you talk about a moment where things sort of took on a clarity for you, that you began to question this non-binary prism and this woke prism that you had been looking at life through. What spurred that change for you?
Yeah, the moment I remember very clearly. So, towards the end of my freshman year of university, I got really sick and ended up in the hospital. And during this time, I was actually paralyzed. Half of my body was paralyzed. I was in the hospital, completely unable to do anything for myself. And I realized that I needed, or I should have, a female nurse taking care of me because I was 18 years old. I was the youngest person in the adult ward of the hospital, and just for comfort and safety, I really wanted to have a female nurse. Yeah, doing all of the things that it would need to be done for someone in the hospital. But in this moment, what I realized was I identified as non-binary at the time, and I believed that identity was what mattered. It didn't matter what biology you had. So how do I kind of mesh these two things together of, I know for a fact that a female nurse would make me feel more comfortable, would put me in a safer situation, but also that identity means everything and biology means nothing. So how do I know who's female, who's male? How do I even rectify this in my brain? And I ended up just like mentally freezing and going, okay, something's wrong. Either something's wrong with the way that I was thinking, something's wrong with the way I'm thinking now, and I need to figure out, what's going on. And I took some time when I was in the hospital, which was terrible because I was sick, but great because I had some time away from that environment, and I was able to think through, okay, what's really going on here? And I kind of came to this conclusion that, okay, biology is a real thing, and identity, maybe it's a real thing, but it can't trump biology. And that was kind of what started me down this rabbit hole of thinking through kind of everything that I had thought before, and starting with, okay, what do I know is true? What can I kind of observe with my eyes? And if this conflicts with something I've been told, then that thing I'm told was probably wrong.
I think it takes a really brave person to question all these things and to admit that maybe they were sold a bill of goods. Ultimately, how did you admit that to yourself and to other people?
Um, It was really hard. I actually, unfortunately, I did kind of spiral backwards into wokeness after I went back to school. So it took a little bit longer for me to kind of fully reject it. But when I did, like, kind of immediately out of the hospital and just started back up my sophomore year, at back school, I did start asking questions to people, and it didn't go well, at all, because a lot of the people, asking questions was offensive. It was oppressive. It made you a right wing Fox News watching conspiracy theorist bigot, and so I just kind of all of my questions were shut down pretty immediately, and it made me rethink, like, am I crazy? How is it that I'm the only one who seems to be questioning this or seeing this? And so it took a while for me to accept that no, I wasn't crazy. The people around me are maybe a little bit crazy, or maybe they're also afraid of speaking out and they do see what's happening. But that wasn't until a little bit later. I had to, during COVID lockdowns, I was sent home again, and I had another time when I was taken out of the environment, forced for a few months to be away from that, just that ideology. And that was when I kind of had more space to, again, think through everything and go, okay, no, I'm pretty sure that all of this is BS. And I feel more comfortable saying it's BS because I've had the time to think it through.
Again, remarkable, because during COVID, so many of us relied on communication like you and I are having right now. We'd get online, FaceTime, Zoom, whatever, into classrooms, into social calls, whatever, however, whomever we were communicating with. And it was like our lifeline to the world and to humanity. And I would think almost that would keep you glued to this ideology to which you had, attached yourself. But in fact, you spent more time thinking. And again, I give you major credit for that. How did this affect your social life? Again, we're getting back to your ties to your family, your friends, and even schoolmates who maybe weren't necessarily close friends, but having to navigate that maze of, shoot, I don't want to offend people because, maybe I'll get reported to DEI or whatever the case may be. How did you find your feet?
Yeah. It was really hard. I mean, the rest of my time in school after COVID, it was virtual. I was a junior in college in 2020 when the COVID lockdown started. So the rest of my junior year and my senior year were virtual. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of friends when I graduated. I did kind of end up pushing a lot of them away. And I think some of it was because they didn't want to be affiliated with me, and some of it was because I didn't want to be affiliated with them anymore. There was another situation towards the end of my time at MIT after I had kind of unculted myself from wokeness.
Decoupled.
Yeah. When in the same theater group, or maybe it was a different theater group, another theater group that I was working with, there was one of my good friends was trying to run for one of the offices. I was president or vice president of the group, and they tried to bar him from running because he was a white man. And that was a situation where a few years before, I would have been totally on board with, oh, absolutely, we need to have as much representation as possible, so we need to make sure that white people can't run for office. But since I had been kind of deprogrammed, I was like, oh, wait, this is racism. This is bad. We shouldn't keep doing this. And so with that happening, I kind of realized that some of the people I was hanging out with were not people I should continue to be with, because they were like bigots, and I had been too in the past, but I couldn't continue to be friends with people who were racist, which was something that I was very much against.
Hey, let me tell you about my friends at besthotgrill.com who make the amazing Solair infrared gas grills. Declare your independence from the low heat, low powered gas grills, which in the course of grilling events wear out every couple of years. Secure your rights to juicy steaks, succulent chicken, and moist fish, as well as healthy grilled veggies and perfect finishing of sous vide. Pursue grilling happiness with the purchase of a USA-made hot, fast Solair infrared gas grill. Solair is perfect for today's busy lifestyles, securing its powers from the efficient direct heat of the Solair infrared burner, which reaches 1,000 degrees in just 3 minutes to lock in the juices and flavor and grill food faster. And celebrate the freedom of a grill that will consistently produce better than restaurant quality food in your own backyard. All stainless steel and welded construction. It is self-evident that Solair could be the last grill you'll ever buy. Make grilling great again with Solair infrared grills. Learn more about these amazing USA-made grills at besthotgrill.com. That's besthotgrill.com. Solair Hot Fast Grills at besthotgrill.com.
I kind of realized that some of the people I was hanging out with were not people I should continue to be with because they were like bigots, and I had been too in the past, but I couldn't continue to be friends with people who were racist, which was something that I was very much against.
Wow. I mean, these are just some really big moves that you made that were I would say courageous. What were you studying at MIT?
I was studying data analytics, data science.
And is that what you're doing now?
No, that's not what I'm doing now. I work for I guess we're a philosophy education startup. So what we do is we try to help young people think rationally about their lives and to really value like having a happy, good life. So not doing what I did and, making myself super depressed and isolated and staying in that mindset. And so that's what I do professionally now is I work on social media and I write and I speak at conferences, and I try to help young people, think rationally and flourish.
The people can find it at OBJ STD Institute. We've got that on the lower third, but that's Objective Student Institute. Is that what it is? Standard.
Yeah.
I knew I'd screw that up. Objective Standard Institute, which is a really remarkable thing as well. All right. I want to get to your views on, ex-woke leftist, ex-non-binary, current advocate for the secular liberal right. How would you define the secular liberal right, Kiyah?
Yeah. So I guess, like I said earlier, when I was woke and I started kind of questioning things, a lot of people told me that I was the right-wing conspiracy theorist, Fox News watching bigot. And now that I am very vocally anti-woke on social media, I get told that now, you're a conservative, you're a right-wing conspiracy theorist, and I don't typically use the word conservative to define myself or what I am advocating for, but there are definitely things about country that I think that we need to conserve. Things like our Constitution that spells out individual rights very well, and the progress that we have made over the years towards creating a culture that's based on individualism and treating people, for who they are and not based on the color of their skin or their gender or anything like that. And so those are things that I think are important and a very big part of what makes our country so great, that I think that we should continue to improve upon and conserve as part of our identity as Americans. What I see is that the current, if you want to call it like the far right, does not do that, even though many of them call themselves conservatives. If you want to talk about, say, the Nick Fuentes type nationalist authoritarians, I think that group, the people who kind of believe that, really have the same mindset of the woke left. They're racist, they want authoritarianism, they get offended by pretty much everything. And I see it that we should be categorizing it as left is crazy and right is crazy. We should put all the crazy on one side.
All
And
the
for
normal on the
me,
other.
yeah. And so I think that's the left. That's kind of how I've been calling it. The left is people who believe in authoritarianism and collectivism and who really want to move our country in a direction that is the opposite of what our the founding fathers wanted and the opposite of the progress we've made. And so I think that those of us who are more wanting to conserve capitalism and individualism and all of that should reclaim the right for ourselves.
Mhm.
And so that is the secular. I think that the government there should be a big separation between church and state. I'm personally an atheist, but really that's what that is. I think that the government should have nothing to do with religion. I think liberalism liberalism in the true meaning of, again, liberty and individualism and individual rights is the foundation of what makes our country great. And I think that is what we should be calling the right. And we should put all of the crazy people who don't like that on the left. So
It's interesting that you're an atheist, and I want to explore that a little bit before we're all finished here, because I'm fascinated by this. Were you raised with religion or without religion?
I was raised with religion.
Okay. And so how have you come to terms with this atheistic part of your value system?
Yeah. I became an atheist. It was kind of over a long period of time. But for me, I found that there wasn't enough evidence for me to continue believing in Christianity, which is what I was raised with. And I actually think that that mindset was also what helped me to get out of wokeness, was when I started to look at things as very evidence-based and fact-based, and I said, okay, I don't want to accept anything that's not based in something that I can either see or logically deduce, then I'm not going to accept it as true. And so I kind of rejected both Christianity and wokeness at a kind of a similar time in my life. And now when it comes to like my values and morals and stuff, I start with what's true, what I can see and observe, and what I can, again, logically deduce about reality. And then I go from there. And
Religion is a hot topic. People always
yeah.
say, don't touch politics or religion. The interesting thing that I'm learning about religion, first of all, our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence is based on Judeo-Christian values, meaning, Jews and Christians share similar values. They are very different from other religions like Buddhism and Islam. And so those values are there. And if you're an atheist, how does that affect your view, for instance, of the Hamas-Israeli war?
When it comes to religion, like how does my view of religion?
Yes, because clearly Jews are a religious group.
Mhm.
They are being attacked by Hamas, which is a Islam-based group, and so clearly both of those sides have some stake in religion. And so how does an atheist view that war?
Well, I'm generally not a fan of religion, as I said, but I don't think that that's really the most important thing. Is who's religious or who's not. It's who's trying to wipe out which group, and Hamas has made it very clear that they want to wipe out Israel, right? Because they're
Yes.
Jews, ethnically, religiously, and so yeah, that's really how I view it, is that you have a group of people who are trying to live in peace and who are really abiding by those for the most part. And I guess no country's perfect, but those kind of individualist liberal values that I talked about being so important to the US. Israel is the most liberal country in the Middle East.
Yes.
And then you have a country like Hamas that's this authoritarian, really theocratic dictatorship that wants to wipe them out. That's why I view the war as you have people who are trying to do really bad things and people who are just trying to survive. And so, yeah, my support of Israel isn't, based on me supporting one religion over another. It's based on really the actions of the governments and the cultures of the countries, which I think are, I know that they can be tied to religion. Hamas has obviously quoted some of the Islamic scriptures and their reasons for doing what they do. But that really is, for me, the important part is, who's violating whose rights.
It is a kind of a clear war of good versus evil, it seems to me. And, but again, I suppose if you ask the Palestinians who they think is evil, they would say the Jews and vice versa. But I am very much in support of Israel in all of this. At the very heart of our democracy lies free speech, a principle we hold sacred. Free speech is the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish. But here we are in a digital age where discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our futures are being silenced or even overshadowed in mainstream narratives. And I know that leaves a lot of people feeling voiceless in these conversations that are really important to our financial independence and security. And this is where wealth protection research steps in, armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research isn't a financial advisory firm. They're actually defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts, and these are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the upcoming 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report. This is a free report. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money as we head into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't touch, and listeners can get it completely free by texting the word ideas to 76626. If you believe, as I do, in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act right now. Text ideas, IDEAS, to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 Election Protection Report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment doesn't think you can handle, but you can, and to take control of our financial destinies. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy now. So the last thing I'd want to cover with you is there's this notion that you've repeated of people calling you a right-wing conspiracy, Fox-watching bigot.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those things, it seems to me that people feel very threatened by Fox News. And I wonder if that's because they're the first and most successful challenge to the pretty much left-leaning, the rest of the media. I mean, I think all 3 major networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, have been largely liberal. CNN and MSNBC are clearly very liberal. And Fox has attracted a very strong audience. And it's really the first network that managed to do that, with setting on a more conservative platform. Is that a threat to people? Like, why are, it's like they want to call everyone who watches Fox crazy. That's a lot of people they're calling crazy. Many of them Democrats, by the way.
Yeah. I think that I don't actually know if most of the people who say this are even familiar with what goes on Fox News.
Right.
I think that there's definitely this, I've called it kind of a cult, I think maybe a few times. And I think that there really is this us versus them mentality of, either you're with us and that means you're good, or you're not with us and that means that you're Satan. Like there's
no in between.
There's no in between of, oh, maybe there's some things on Fox I agree with, there's some things I don't, or even maybe everything I disagree with on Fox, and I've taken the time to actually think through like why.
Right.
It's just, well, Fox News maybe once criticized this one thing that I agree with, therefore it's bad, and everyone who watches it is bad.
Yeah.
It's a very much just, you're with us, you're against us, and that's it. And I don't even know why I believe this. It's just, if you criticized me once, then you must be the enemy. And so I think that's really the thing with Fox News. Most people don't even have a legitimate understanding of what's on the channel, I think.
I appear on Fox now and then, so I know a lot of the people there, and they're quite sane in my mind. And
Yeah,
not everyone at every network is perfect. That is for sure. But
absolutely.
the paranoia, the fear, the threatening of that network is notable to me. Before I let you go, Kiyah, this election, you tweeted out. What do you say? You posted? You X'd? I don't know that we're ever going to get away from the word tweeted. I just don't know. That kind of, we're screwed either way. Joe Biden or Donald Trump, we are screwed. Um, is there a lesser of two evils in your mind?
Whew. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm gonna say something. I'm still working on this, so this is not my set in stone opinion.
Okay.
But I think right now one of the biggest things for me is foreign policy. Just seeing how the Israel situation has escalated and how we're getting threats from Iran, the Iranian regime, and some of these other, terrorist entities in the Middle East. I think that Trump is better when it comes to foreign policy. From the research that I've done, he's been harder on the UN. He's pulled us out of agreements that I think we shouldn't have been in the first place. And I think that he would be very hard on the Iranian regime and those terrorist proxies if they were to start getting too comfortable threatening us. I'm still on the fence of if I feel like it's useful to vote this election, kind of at all. But I think if someone put a gun to my head and said you had to vote, I think Trump would win by a little bit. But again, I'm still trying to work through both candidates. I think that they both have their pros and cons in a lot of different issues. But yeah, I think on the foreign policy issue, Trump does seem to be a little bit better.
Yeah, and that can be seen as an existential issue. Foreign policy, the border has been a complete disaster. But listen, more than anything, I'm thrilled to talk to you because I don't think there are a lot of people as wise and as clear-headed and as bright as you, or who are willing to spend the time thinking that you did. But here's my hope, that you inspire a lot of people to do the same. You are courageous as hell for admitting things that you thought, were right at one time and that you came around. I think that takes an abundance of courage, Kiyah. So I congratulate you on that. I'm thrilled to talk to you, and I hope we can do it again. Because how old are you now, Kiyah?
I'm 24.
Still very young, believe it or not. I'm sure you feel like you're edging into that middle age, but you're not. And so I'm thrilled to know you, and I hope we can do it again. She is brave. She's done good. We've told you all the places you can find her. Please follow her. Check out her YouTube channel. This is one of those young voices that you want to pay attention to. I have a feeling Kiyah is going places. Kiyah Willis, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me and all the kind words.